Hey Libra, how you doing? This is your Ascendant forecast, taking you from the 1st of December on Monday, right the way through to Sunday, the 7th of December 2025. And this is the week of the full moon in Gemini. It's going to be highlighting your 9th house, which is about freedom, fun, advancement, this expansion, this sense of an open-minded possibility. I think this is quite a good place to have a full moon in this week ahead. There's lots going on in this week ahead. Not so much in terms of planetary movements per se, but there's some tasty little aspects coming up that I think are going to be quite helpful. We've also got the ending of a series of astrological planets that have been playing out over the last 3 months, throughout autumn, in fact. And so we're coming to the end of the time of the water grand trines. And so I will be commenting about that as I go through. Really, what I'm going to be doing is kind of pacing you through all the astrological weather in this week ahead. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa. Hi there. And as ever, I'm always working from slides just to keep me on track. And so I'm going to start this just by putting a thank you shout out to everybody that has historically supported this channel and continues to do so. I really appreciate you. I really, really appreciate you. So what have we got here? We've got two charts. Now, these are using a Holstein Western Tropical methodology. And what that means is we've got the whole of Libra taking up the first house. And each of these sections are houses, from the first right through to the 12th. And yeah, if when you look at your birth chart, you've got the symbol for Libra and also the symbol for Scorpio in your first house in this first section, then it's also important to give Scorpio a listen to as well. So yeah, hopefully that's of help. Now, in this week ahead, I've listed all the things that I think are of great importance, and you'll see that we're starting on Monday. We've got the moon in Aries. By Tuesday the 2nd, the moon's gone into Taurus. We've got the moon going into Gemini on the 4th. That's up here. And then finally, we're going to have the moon going into Cancer on the 6th. That's up here. So it's going from the 7th house right the way through to your 10th house. It's really important. It's a really important space that the moon's going through in this week ahead. And you can see it here. So you have to keep your eye on the moon. The moon is going from here right the way around. You'll also see that over the course of this week, Venus is moving forwards. And also Mercury is inching closer to the end of Scorpio. So let's dive in. So on Monday the 1st, we've got the moon in the tail end of your 7th house. And it is going to be making a conjunction with Chiron. And I think that can bring up a little bit of tenderness in terms of how you're feeling in your relationships. And what you might find quite helpful is opening up a little bit more than usual. It tends to bring out a lot of real open honesty and rawness, in particular, throughout the 7th house. And it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So just be aware of that as a possibility. I'm going to come back to this Chiron energy in the 7th house a bit later on when I'm talking about Mars coming into a trine with Chiron. But whatever is set up on Monday the 1st, we're kind of circling back to on Friday the 5th, FYI. But anyway, on the 2nd, we've got the moon heading into the sign of Taurus, and it's going to be really highlighting everything to do with what goes on in deeper relationships in your life, not just like the surface level stuff, but the deeper psychology between you and your partner, and you and your family, in terms of guilt, shame, blame, anger, resentment, but also in how you manage all shared assets between you. It can also be quite a sexy house, which is quite helpful. We've also got Venus going into an exact sextile with Pluto on the 2nd as well. So this is Tuesday the 2nd, and Venus and Venus and Pluto in their sextile, I think, is really encouraging you to get back into your physical senses. You know, Venus, she feels things, she relates to things, you know, and Venus is absolutely sensuous. You know, she's all about the senses, what she's feasting her eyes on, you know, the sense of touch, the smell, the taste, and all that jazz. And so I think, you know, as you know, Venus is in your third house, which is very social. And it is about being out and about. And Pluto right now is in a very sort of creative place. You know, he's in a very creative part of your chart. So I think the more you get out and about and the more you're able to enjoy everything that you are sensing, the more you've got of creative energy to play with things. And so I think this is quite helpful. Now, this might also be, you know, like the moon is here in the sign of Taurus in the 8th house. You might find it's easier to relate to people when you're out and about. It's not so intense because you're not just kind of penned in and not really like connecting. I think connection is the key on Tuesday, Wednesday, and into Thursday. Now, on Thursday, the 4th, as the moon goes into the sign of Gemini, it's really highlighting this 9th house, which I love. You know, the 9th house is all about a higher context in life. It's very much a place where we go to feel free, get that feeling of independence, where we can absolutely grow and feel quite magnificent. It informs our religion, our psychology, our politics, our spirituality. And it also helps us go on a much deeper adventure in life. You know, we might want to have unusual friends or connect with people that we don't see that often. And so it really opens our life out. And so I love it when the moon comes up here. I really do. And during that time, we've got the full moon on the 4th. That's Thursday, the 4th. And, you know, as ever with the full moon, the sun is in opposition. So the sun's in the 3rd house and the moon's in the 9th. This is very much about the conflict between everything that's local and known and understood versus everything that's unusual, bigger, unknown, unexperienced, and has a much higher spiritual value. And so you may well feel a little bit caught between the two at the time of the full moon. As full moons go, this is an interesting polarity. It's not like life or death kind of situations. It's really pulling you out of everything that you've known. You know, there's probably a feeling that you're on a quest, that you want to learn more. You might be feeling a little bit too squashed in your life. You might feel that the people around you in your local community are just a little bit too parochial, maybe. I don't know, but the tension is there. And that tension that comes up is to encourage you to grow and to encourage you to be a bit more spontaneous, to do something a bit unusual and see what happens, you know, and that these are the kinds of experiences that open up our lives. Now, at the same time this is going on, the full moon, so the sun and the moon are also in a square to the nodes across the 6th house and the 12th house. Now, this is very much about our physical health and our day-to-day and all the stories we hold about our day-to-day life. And then this is about where we're letting go of our stories and where, you know, we're in our mental health domain, you know, so wellness is a really important thing. And so, you know, you might find if you're pinned in place in this space of this is what's known and this is where it starts and ends, and you can't move out of this knowledge or out of this kind of energy, you're likely to get a little bit mentally unwell. You'll feel a little bit sort of coined in and you know, it's a bit uncomfortable. And at the same time, you might also find that your physical health can suffer as well, you know, because this 3rd house is in a square to what you're letting go of and your mental health and what you're holding on to in terms of your physical health. You know, there's a bit of a challenge here. You know, the sun is in a square to these nodes. When we come to next week, Venus is going to be in a square to these nodes as well, really sort of challenging you to release a lot from the past, release a lot of your memories, release a lot of your old belief systems so that you can create a whole set of new stories for yourself. that could actually have you feeling a lot more healthy. But what I really see, like Thursday and Friday, is a lot of this is about, where do you put yourself in life? Do you see yourself in your kind of local habitat? Like one of those wildlife programs, where someone says, and here we look at the lesser spotted woodpecker in his natural habitat doing XYZ. You're like that. What is your natural habitat, and where has it got too small for you? Where do you need to lose the programming that is holding you in place at a time when you want to break free? It's all possible. In particular, on Friday the 5th, one of the things I like about this, and I did say I'd come to this, but Mars is in a trine with Chiron. It's really suggesting that we can take action in our local community to bring about a feeling of healing. Do you remember on Monday the 1st, I said, the moon's going to come into a conjunction with Chiron. You might feel a little bit sensitive, a little bit vulnerable. It might feel a little uncomfortable. We'd come back round to it. By Friday the 5th, you might find that you're needing to take a bit of action with your local friends that puts you in that sort of vulnerable place where you're opening up about how you're feeling. You might actually find that there are other people in your local area that feel similar to you. You might find that you're not the only one that is feeling yourself open up exponentially. You're not on your own. And so I do think as you take action and you connect with people, you'll probably find a lot more in common with people than you realized. So you can grow together. So don't forget to tap into that resource. It's there for you. You don't have to do this alone. And then Saturday and Sunday, we're coming into, the moon is coming into your 10th house. As it comes into your 10th house, your attentions are more on your career, more on how you're perceived out in the real world, like the lesser spotted woodpecker or whatever you're doing. What are you like in your workplace? How are you shining? How are people noticing you? How are people connecting into your vibration? Now, as we come to the end in particular, and I mentioned this, alluded to this at the start, we're coming to the end of a series of grand water trines. And for you, these water trines have been going through your 2nd, your 6th, and your 10th house, really showing where empathy, compassion, forgiveness, and softness and intuition are impacting your career. That, when you build your self-esteem and are kind to yourself, and also when you use softness and compassion, and don't berate yourself in terms of your productivity, when you're kind to yourself and when you're looking after your health, how it has this really great knock-on effect where people trust you, admire you, and want to work with you. And so there's this really kind of yummy feeling that's been practiced and refined since August, where you've been coming more into your emotions, more into your intuition, and allowing them to kind of permeate through your money, your day-to-day, your professional life. And the more you've allowed these to be felt and understood, I think the better things have gone. Now we're coming to the end of this pattern. As we go into next week, you'll find that this great big grand trine starts to ease off. First of all, it was Mars that made this 3rd corner, then the Sun, then Venus, and Mercury's done it a few times. Mercury's just bringing it to a close. So this is going to change as of next week. So I don't know how you might choose to make the most of it, but on Saturday and Sunday, we're really embracing the last of this energy. And so I would say, how can you be in softness in your career? How can you allow your kindness and compassion, your unconditional regard? How can you allow your beautiful diplomacy, that connection, that heart connection? How can you allow all this to come out and infuse your career? Now, obviously, it's on Saturday and Sunday, so you may not feel quite so career oriented, but how can you stand in this energy over the weekend? To me, this is a really important question. And, so throughout this week, if we go back to the beginning, we're starting off with this energy here in the 8th house where you're kind of considering how you're interacting with everybody else, the people close to you, then you're coming into this place of revelation at the time of the full moon. You're considering how these old patterns have kept you locked in and how you might break free of them. And then as we're coming to the end, how can you go into the softness and just reinforce that before the next week starts? So hope this has been helpful. These are really interesting times with lots of really fascinating astrology. And if you would like me to go a bit deeper with you, feel free to get in touch. I've got a community space where I do Monday to Friday forecasts. I also do a love forecast and a career forecast every week for all 12 signs of the zodiac. There are hangouts, and from January there are lessons like teaching astrology right from scratch. So if that sounds like something you might want to do in a group, we are literally starting at the beginning, but there are opportunities to hop onto more advanced things if that's where you are. Or maybe you want to work on a more sort of individual basis, like you and I together, on a monthly basis. I'm opening up some spaces for an astrological mentorship where we take your chart and we look at it from multiple perspectives. For an hour a month or more, we can dive into your chart, just you and I, and see where it leads. So if any of that sounds like, wow, that's what I want to do, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the show notes and also on the channel page. So wishing you a beautiful week ahead, and catch up with you all soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.